same dynamic today. Human rights and concepts of justice don't matter when it comes to us. Everyone else gets to have their rights recognized except us. And that's why I'm running on my campaign. They have his little story here.
I see.
I don't know if they tell the whole story.
I read
but
about him. He was 26. Wasn't he one of the youngest? Are you ready to start?
I'm ready to start.
Let's go. You ready? Let's go. Well, thank you so much for joining, having conversations with Rural Coalition of Colleton County. I'm so happy and excited to be here with you and to be on this location. Just having a conversation with you regarding your run for congressional 6th District of South Carolina. So everyone, I just want to welcome you to our conversations with our candidate, Marcel Dixon. And I'll just have you to say hi real quick and then just tell the people the significance of this area, this spot that we are standing in right now, and why you chose this spot today to interview or have a conversation with us.
Well, hello everyone. Gregg Marcel Dixon here. I'm a teacher. I was born in Savannah, Georgia, but raised in Jasper County. I'm a local of the Low Country. My family's been in this area. Beaufort County, Jasper County didn't exist until the early 1900s, but Jasper County, since the mid-1700s, at least as far back as I've been able to go. And I'm running for South Carolina's 6th Congressional District because I did research. And I found out that after 30 years in power, our current Congressman, James Clyburn, the data shows that we are the 6th poorest district out of 435 districts total in the United States of America. A majority black district, and we're the 6th poorest, almost the poorest in the entire USA. And we deserve better than that. So I'm glad to be here to speak with y'all.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And I just want to say that I had the opportunity to interview another candidate from another party regarding some very important issues right here in the 6th District of South Carolina. Like he said, Marcel said, our district is the 6th poorest district in the entire country. Along with that district, we're standing in Jasper County. I'm from Colleton County, two of the same counties that are also included in what we know to be known as the Corridor of Shame. Our current Congressman, Clyburn, has been in office since 1997, I believe.
1992, he was first elected. In 1993, he took office. 1993. So 30 years, technically.
Excuse me, 1993, the same year I graduated from college, undergrad. It is now 2022. The Corridor of Shame is over 30 years old.
Yes, it is.
Of the 17 counties, 11 of them are some of the poorest
in the entire country.
In the entire country.
Yes.
This is one of those counties. This is primarily a black district, also. And we have our friends. We're out in this is real. This is nature.
It's 4 of them now. It was only 2 last time I came here, but they found some buddies.
Yes, and it's okay because we're here. We're on the ground. It's not scripted. This is real life. This is just everyday life in the Low Country. You don't know what is going to come upon you. But the question remains, he has been in office as long as the Corridor of Shame almost has been in existence. And I'm asking you why? Why? What happened? Why are we still in that place? And what are you going to offer to the counties that make up the 6th District, specifically to lead the country into working with the state to change that narrative of this district?
So one thing I want to say real quick, we are at the tombstone of Thomas Hayward Jr. The Corridor of Shame, as it's been called in pop culture, has been around for like 30 years, but really it's been around for like 400 because this particular enslaver was a sign of the Declaration of Independence, and yet he enslaved over 70 black people, probably over 100. I forgot the number, but it was a lot. And he did that because he said the tyranny of the British, while at the same time he was a tyrant to the people he enslaved. And the reason I invited you to this area here, because this is where it starts. My campaign is to repair Black America to fix America. This is Thomas Hayward Jr. Right a few miles, maybe like a mile down the street, are the Haywards, the Hayward community. They're Black. They are descendants of people he enslaved. Now his descendants are living in wealth. The Black descendants are still living in heartbreaking poverty. I went to school with a lot of Haywards. I'm actually related to them. Don't know how, but you know how.
Yeah,
you know, in this area, we're all related somehow.
Somehow.
But no, the parents can never explain it. Yeah, I went to school with a lot of them. I went to school in Jasper County, which is the lowest performing school district in South Carolina, which is one of the lower performing states. And here's the truth of the matter. I don't fault Clyburn. This may be shocking. I don't blame Clyburn for the heartbreaking poverty that exists here, because it existed before him. It existed before his parents, and it was not done by people that look like him. The poverty in America is a result of the fact that America cut off his nose to spite his face. We were the nose, okay? And by trying to impoverish us with laws from Jim Crow, redlining, land theft, it's hurt everyone. But we get the brunt of it. Where I do fault Clyburn is that he has been in Congress for 30 years. And look at the issues we go through here. We have some of the worst performing schools in the country. I don't know about you, but I know here in Jasper County, Beaufort County, Colleton, Hampton, Black Americans have lost hundreds of thousands of acres of property. Of the 15 to 16 million acres of property our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents fought to get and fought to keep against the Ku Klux Klan, against an anti-Black government, 15 million of it has been stolen. Clyburn has not done a piece of legislation about that yet. In November 2021, he wrote a bill to give 20 acres of land, not to Black Americans, but to a group of Native Americans called the Catawba, who are only 3,000 in number. And they live mostly in North Carolina, not even in South Carolina. The thing about the Catawba, where they were enslavers, they used to enslave us as well, just like white people, but they were also slave hunters. They were so brutal that sometimes our people will go and return to the plantations willingly than to be caught by them. He gave them land to build a multi-million-dollar casino from which they will get billions of dollars and be able to pay their descendants millions. Meanwhile, Black Americans, Gullah Geechee, as I'm sure are you, as sure am I, where land is essential to our culture, we've lost it. He hasn't done anything. So the reason we continue to be in the corner of shame, and I used to hate that terminology, but I embrace it now. Because the shame is not for us. The shame belongs on leaders like Clyburn, who has not written a single piece of legislation to address the issues that have caused the property. And that's where I fought.
And I want to also point out that I've seen and listened to many of your interviews and conversations. I've never seen or heard Mr. Dixon attack Congressman Clyburn, only his policy.
His policy and his record.
As we all should. I want to ask you about the voting,
Okay.
It's easy for us to register voters.
Yes.
Easy, but it's easier than going out and voting.
Yes.
We are having multiple voting drives, and people they're either stuck in what they're used to doing, or they don't want to be bothered anymore. And we both know that we have to be bothered. If we're going to make change, we have to be bothered. So what would you say to those who are just fed up, tired with the way the system is? What do you say to them to just give them some hope, some excitement about getting out there, hearing your message, and not letting others dictate how they vote or if they vote? So how do you reach those individuals?
I say to them, I am them. I'm fed up with the way the system is. That's why I'm running to change it. And people have said to me, well, how are you going to get you running on reparations? Because that is the main thing on my platform, reparations. And with us, it's not just direct monetary payments, it's also land I let them know I am them. I'm not running to work within the system the way it is. No, we as Black Americans, descendants of American slaves, we have never tried to work within the system the way it is. We've always worked to make the system the way it should have been. So I let those people know that, yes, if any group, the only group in this nation really, who has a right to have no confidence in this government are Black Americans. This government has not yet done right by us in all the years since it existed, whether in the 1600s as a British colony, nor since 1776 when it became the USA. And yet I tell them, the problem with us as Black Americans is not that we don't vote. That's a lie. Our voter engagement up until the election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump was actually increasing every single year, whereas other groups are either stagnating or receding. The problem with us as Black Americans are two things. We either don't show up to vote or we give away our vote without any demands. I say to them that now it's not that just you need to show up and vote because of our ancestors. We often are guilted into voting. Oh, your ancestors died for you to vote. We need to stop saying that. We cannot guilt our people into voting. Our ancestors not just died for us to vote. They died for us to have wealth. They died for us to have good education. They died for us to have land. They died for us to have long, quality lives. We need to give Black people a reason to vote. But when we get that reason to vote, we need to show up. So I'm telling people what I am planning to do specifically for Black American voters. My slogan is Repair Black America to Fix America. I'm letting them know not only do you have a choice now, you have a good choice. And I promise them that you're not going to vote for me and then you wake up 2 years later and say, well, ain't nothing different going on. Because I'm already doing things differently now. No candidate in modern day American history has ran specifically on Black American issues. I'm so dedicated to it that when I first ran, I wanted to make sure that people knew what I was about. So that's why I came up with the slogan. I either say Repair Black America to Fix America or Repair Black America to Make America Great. So when people see me, I can't hide from it. You see who I'm about. I'm not saying Black Americans only, but it's going to be Black Americans first. Because what we have had in this country is Black Americans never. So that's what I'm letting people know. That not only do I look like you, but you don't vote for me because of that. That's what we've been doing with Clyburn. We've been voting for him because he looks like us. And we think if a person looks like us, they're going to look out for us. No. Oftentimes, the people spitting on us and turning their back on us are the people who look like us. I look like you. I've gone through the same issues as you. My father was addicted to drugs. My mother was a teenage parent. My grandmother died because of medical anti-blackness. She gave birth to my third uncle. They gave her a bad batch of blood. She contracted a form of hepatitis. It ruined her kidneys. And even though she would live from the 1960s until the 1990s, she died 4 days after my 9th birthday. Black women are still dying at high numbers from something as simple as giving birth to a child. I let them know that my father grew up in poverty, raised by his great-grandparents because his mother was addicted to drugs. My mother's father died from drug overdose that the American government imported in our neighborhoods. I went to the bad schools. I knew how it felt to have the lights turned off. I went through these things. I knew then that we deserved better, and I know it now. The difference was then, I couldn't run for office. Now I can, and I'm doing it.
And we are so excited and happy that you are doing. No, we really are.
Not everyone is, because some people think that Clyburn owns this seat. I tell people, you see, that's our problem with Black American voters right there. We have this Messiah complex. We do not work for politicians. They work for us. It is not our job to praise them. It's our job to hold them accountable. So I tell them, even with me, just because I'm saying black this, black that, don't go ahead and just vote for me off of that. Hold me accountable. Ask me those tough questions. Vet me. And hold my feet to the fire.
And that was going to be my next question. I read somewhere when I was doing a little research that District 6 is the only quote-unquote safe district in South Carolina. I think I read that yesterday.
Yes. For the Democrats.
For Democratic, that it's considered a safe district. Sometimes our current congressman doesn't have an opponent. He has a real opponent this time. I don't think that he is as safe as he normally is during an election, because people are slowly thinking about their votes. They're seeing things that were promised that, you know, you go out there and vote, I promise we'll do this. I promise I'll have that done. And they're not actually getting it done, and they're considering who they're voting for and why they're voting for them, asking the questions. No, what are you willing to put on your platform? Not only what are you willing to do once you're in office, but what are you willing to run on so that everyone knows what you're about. And you're doing that, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, I want to say that even though my campaign is Repair Black America to Fix America, because there's this thing in America that I feel is really, really makes me bitter. We as Black Americans have been in this country since its inception. We fought the French and Indian War, which was the war before when the British said pay us back the money, and we said no taxation or representation. Then we fought in the Revolutionary War, and every war we've ever had in this country to defend this nation, Black Americans have been there, even though our own government was warring against us. I am making this government do what they told us that we all should do, repair what you've broken. However, and I need people to understand, what helps Black America helps everyone. A study by City Financial said that the U.S. has lost $16 to $17 trillion because of anti-Black racism since the year 2000. Now, the GDP, the total value of the U.S. economy, is $19.2 trillion. So we would have been twice as rich had we already done reparations for Black Americans. So think about your check. If you get $1,000 a week, think about bringing $2,000 home. That would make me happy. That's pretty much, America has said, you know what, I don't want the extra $1,000, just throw it away. So that's $2,000. If we go back to the 1600s, imagine how much money this country could have had we done right by Black Americans. So I want white voters to understand in this rural areas that it helps them as well. And when Black America hurts, you hurt too. We may hurt the most, but it's going to hurt you as well. But I have universal policies too. Transportation. I need to let you know, all of us in this area have grown up needing to catch a ride. That's what we say here.
Go to the lane.
Right. We gotta see if a friend will pick us up, and we gotta give the friend gas money.
Yep.
Black Americans are the most likely to be without a vehicle. Ain't that something? Even though transportation in the U.S., Black Americans have invented many things, from the traffic light to the automatic lubrication system for trains. We've been integral in transportation, and yet we're the most likely to be without transportation. Now in a big city, you may have a bus you can catch, but in a rural area, we have very little options when it comes to transportation. If you can't catch someone heading in that direction, you can't get to your doctor's appointment, you can't get to the grocery store, you can't get to the post office, you can't get to the pharmacy before it closes. You can't even get to a parent-teacher conference. So if your kid gets sick at school, you have no one to go and pick him or her up. I have a plan where I am going to treat transportation like a human right, like we do with housing. There's many government programs available to help people become homeowners. There should be government programs to help people become vehicle owners, but not just owning a vehicle. Sometimes a person gets a vehicle, and I remember when I first got my first car, I was excited. My mom was like, okay, you got the car, but how are you going to pay for insurance and tires? I was just excited about having a vehicle. I didn't think about that. The first time I got a flat tire, the car had to sit there until my brother came along and got another tire and put it on. But had he not done that, my car would have sat there. I've had students, because I work at a charter school where there is no public bus system, because the state pays for it and people from anywhere in the state can attend, so they can't provide a bus. And these students miss a week of school because their car broke down on the side of the road, and they could not get to school for a week, and their parents couldn't get to work for a week until one of them got paid to get a new tire. So my plan is to introduce a program that will partner with small businesses, so where a person gets a car, almost like an EBT card, and they go to a car garage and they can get assistance for wear and tear, whether that's oil changes, whether that's rotating tires, changing tires. Of course, a person has to qualify based on their income. We have not, my team and I have not developed that yet, but you gotta have car ownership and you gotta have car maintenance. Because when a person cannot get around their community, they can't work and pay taxes and help enrich that community. And that is something that a lot of people don't think about. because rural America is so ignored, people don't realize the issues that impact us. And transportation is one of those.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I had the opportunity to ask a Democratic campaign from Colleton County, who's running for county council seat at large,
Okay.
which has been held by the same individual for the past 20 years. She's running for it. I asked her, that was a very specific question. What are you going to do? This is my question to her. What are you going to do about transportation, possible bus line, rural bus line? Like you said, if people cannot get to, especially elderly, because there are a lot of elderly people in the rural areas, but not only elderly, but just everyday working people not having transportation. Was she willing to support a county-funded bus line with different hubs throughout the county for more animals, for I don't want you to get mad, but and she said that she would add that to her platform, but she made it seem like it would be rather difficult, or we're going to drop them off. That can come along. I want to know for kind of people of any county in the rural areas. The city, once you're outside of the city, you are almost forgotten. So if you have any specifics for maybe farmers markets to help push it, I know that it takes the county government or the city government to pass a lot of these, but are you willing to come down to Colleton County, Amber, any county, once elected, to help fight for those things?
Oh yes, I am working with a group called, I believe they're called Friends of Low Country Transit. They're very active in Dorchester County, and their whole agenda is expanding public transportation, not just buses, but a rail line throughout Dorchester County, Charleston County. But I told them, you're not going to do my people in Colleton and Jasper and Hampton like that. You'll put us in there too. So I'm working with them about that, and I am willing to go anywhere. Before I started running for office, I was known for showing up at town halls in Richmond County and Jasper County and talking about issues of other areas. And I felt like we are so interconnected. What impacts Bamberg County is going to impact Jasper County as well. So I'm definitely willing to do that.
And I wanted to go back, if you don't mind, to conversation on reparations.
Okay.
I know that I listened to one of your interviews, and a good starting point to determine who gets it was around 19, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Around 1900, 1901 to determine where it would start as far as lineage. And I know some people are trying to say race. And I've seen you had to correct several people and several articles. Just recently, the other day, I believe you corrected a writer.
And he's a writer and an educator, and he makes appearances on TV, and I had to correct him. The starting point will be 1865, okay? If you were in America as a black person in 1865, whether you were enslaved or whether you were a free person of color, because we know a black person in America was never truly free, you automatically qualify for reparations if you are a descendant of those people. That is the main qualifier right there. You also have to be a person that has consecutively classified yourself as black, whether that was colored, Negro, Black American, African American, freedman, whatever label was being used at the time, you would have had to have used that at least 10 years prior to the enactment of reparations legislation. So that way we don't get some $5 black Americans coming all of a sudden saying, okay, I've been ashamed of this when my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother is black. So that is the starting point right there.
And I appreciate you saying that. And thank you for your correction. I think I was listening to...
In California, yeah, they said 1901.
Okay, that's it. And And I just wanted to get your thoughts on those, because I totally agree that reparations is due now. And I also agree that it is for black people specifically,
Descendants
descendants
of American slaves.
American slaves,
Yes.
not slaves that landed 50 other different places outside of America.
Right.
And I do also agree with you that I cannot go to Japan and say, oh, my great-grandmother is Japanese. I was over there somewhere, but I heard you guys are giving out reparations. You just like I've heard you and others say, you cannot just become black
Right.
and a descendant of a slave when it's convenient for you. And then I wanted to ask you your thoughts on those that says, well, it can't be done, or how do you do it? Pull yourself up from the bootstrap. Well, what other group of people pulls yourself up from the bootstrap when they're already hundreds of years behind?
Mm-hmm.
And you want me, I'm already hundreds of years behind, and you want me to pull myself up from the bootstrap? The boots that you put me down to, I still have to do all that work, and then you're going to beat me as I come up. You're going to try to beat me down, but I'm wrong for asking for what is due. And I want to hear you.
So much to say to that. So one, Jamaica, Barbados, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, even now some Latin countries like Mexico are all starting to demand reparations for one thing or the other. I can't just get on a plane, land in Jamaica and say, hey, I'm black too, so the British government owes me for chattel slavery and all the brutalities they did to Jamaicans. That's not my lineage. The same way, likewise, a Jamaican can't come to America in the 1970s and say, hey, America, I went through chattel slavery, Jim Crow, redlining. No, those were things that black Americans went through. So it has to be based on lineage. The second thing is, people who say it can't be done, they always want to say that whenever it is time to do something for black Americans. We were enslaved for 260 years by the American government. Then they came up with other ways to keep us in slavery, even though it on paper had ended. They did debtor's prison, where they would charge us with some outrageous fine, knowing that we didn't have a penny, because they never gave us a penny from which we were owed, and said, okay, you can't pay it, so now we're going to put you in prison and you're going to go back on the plantation. They did sharecropping. They did labor conscription. Then they did Jim Crow and redlining. This country was able to specifically come up with ways to disenfranchise us for centuries. Now that it's time to specifically address the damage they've done, you want to tell us it can't be done? No, it don't work like that. It don't work like that. Now, let's look at what is happening now. Ukraine is not a part of NATO. NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. For those who may not know, it means a group of countries, America's a part of it, who have the attitude, if you attack one of us, you attack all of us. Ukraine had a chance to join, they said no. Now Russia is supposedly invading Ukraine. And America, which is not an ally of Ukraine, has sent not millions, not billions, but trillions of dollars to Ukraine in the form of military equipment and in the form of direct aid. Because they say we must protect Ukrainian territory. They say it is a crime for a foreign nation to invade another sovereign nation. That is very funny. From where did that money come? Because when black Americans ask for reparations, they say it would bankrupt the nation, which we know that is not the case at all. So let's look at the vaccines. Trillions of dollars to develop the vaccines, to educate people about the vaccines, to distribute them for free, and not just to Americans, but to other nations as well. Let's look at the stimulus checks that were sent. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Let's look at unemployment. They doubled unemployment from $300 a week to $600 a week. Let's look at the PPP loans that most businesses will not have to pay back. That was probably more than trillions of dollars. And people want to say taxes. None of that came from taxes, because at the time that was done, Donald Trump had did historic tax cuts, that we are still living in a time of historic tax cuts. America is a monetary sovereign. It can pay any bill that it needs to pay. The Federal Reserve is an institution that exists to make sure that the American economy never goes to financial ruin. Ben Bernanke and Alan Greenspan were chairmen of